Good day, everybody. How's it going out there? Well, another week, another video. Um, this one, not so much of current news. Unfortunately, in the real world, the human news is quite devastating recently. Uh, I unfortunately don't cover that kind of news, but I also said you do be vigilant and be safe out there. But what we are going to talk about today is a little bit of a throwback of a video of a video game that I did, and an important message that I think it conveyed. And because video games and art and things like that do sort of shine a light on a good game, or a good story can shine a light on particular events. Not necessarily. Now you might be thinking it's the current one that I'm playing and finishing up, which is the um, which is the one that is Back to the Dawn. That one is really good, and I would absolutely suggest you play it if you are into resource management with good narratives and things like that. No, but I'm going to be going back to one we played a little bit, which is similarly a really good game with multiple branches and multiple endings. And that is Brok the Investigator. The ending of that game kind of stuck out to me, and I don't think I actually ever really expressed why it did. There are multiple endings that you can get, and the ending that I got on my playthrough was one of the earliest that you could possibly get. Like, it's a very early ending. And if you don't want spoilers for the game, obviously you should probably just stop here and, go enjoy it on your own time. But so going forward here, there's going to be spoilers. So I got what's called the drummer ending. And so if you don't remember, there was the drummers and there is the slums, and you play as Brok, who, is raising a surrogate son in the slums. And you get to play as the son character, and as Brok the Investigator, and your son is a cat. And basically you can play as the cat, but the cat usually is very much a puzzle solving sort of thing, and a lot of his storyline revolves around trying to pass this big exam, to basically become part of the drummer society. And the drummers are, basically an upper class caveat, whereas like the slums are obviously like the people trying to live day to day, the quote unquote lower class of the society. And the reason I think that the ending stuck out to me as it did is it's the first time that a video game, quote unquote, punishes you for playing the game well. But it's not really a punishment. It's more like an ending that isn't the canon ending. Because when you end the game, it says this is not the canon ending. And usually, like, they're games with multiple endings based on how well you did is not uncommon. It's not an uncommon thing. It's been around since at least the Super Nintendo days. I remember some of the first games that had like multiple endings that you could do. I think the first one I recall playing ever was a fighting game called Killer Instinct, which is, if you played it on the easy mode, you wouldn't get like the full story. You would get like this like thing, but if you pumped up the difficulty and played through and did more fights, then you'd get a better ending for your character. And I think there was like different endings for the characters for the Super Nintendo Killer Instinct. So that was like one of my first introductions to that. And most of them follow that formula, right? You'll get an optimal ending by playing optimally. So when a game says you played optimally, you played as Brok's son, surrogate son, and you played optimally, and you get a quote-unquote non-canon ending, a bad ending, play again. So the idea is that the canon ending is that Brok's child fails this exam, according to the story, right? and so remains in the slums. And it's an interesting thought, and it's an interesting thing, but I do like the Drummer ending, even though it's a very weird ending that kind of abruptly ends the story, because this is a side effect of being successful or succeeding at goals, particularly of intelligence, that a lot of people don't realize is a real thing in society. So the ending of the Drummer ending has Brok seeing, him off and him going into drummer society, and basically separating, like basically that kind of forces them to draw apart, as father and son. Now the father is not saddened by it. The father and the son are both saddened by this, but there is an essence of, a happy sadness, right? Like that his son was successful, but that means that he's not going to see him as often because he cannot be a part of drummer society. And I think that I think it's a very important aspect of like parenthood, that when your kids, you hope that your kids become successful, but if your kids become too successful, sometimes it can feel like there's like that wedge of success is drawing, like the success draws more demand, draws more things, so that the distance between father and son grows, and father and mother, son and father, mother, etc., parent and child draws apart when they become successful, when they, strike it out into adulthood successfully. It is when your child is unsuccessful or has some hiccups or has some problems, which is okay. It happens in life. Is when usually you might see them in your life more often, like keep them close to the chest. And I think it's a thing that not a lot of people talk about and not a lot of people think about. And to me, it was kind of really cool that a game kind of addressed that situation that is more is a common point of life that many people don't really think about. So I thought that was really, really well written and really well done. And it really makes the game and the ending to me stand out amongst a lot of video games, which is, well, you get good and you get the best ending. You get good, and like then everything turns out in the way that the game intended. Whereas this, Brok the Investigator, offers a different take on that. Basically, that if you do your best as one character, that you are able to solve those puzzles easily. Because like obviously I like solving puzzles, and like the puzzles were really fun, and I enjoyed solving them, and I was able to solve them pretty well. And I'm a dork as it is, but in my own life, that kind of thing echoes too, right? Where it's like if you get too lost in the weeds and too lost in your success, then sometimes it can feel isolating because you grow apart from, the people who, were there for you, and it can be difficult to, keep that, chain open. But as long as you remember, that I'm sure that, they always look at you proudly, and you look at them proudly, things will turn out all right in the end. But I think it's as I said, it's a really good thing that they address that. It definitely makes me want to go back on my own time and play more, to find different endings. But obviously I don't have much time these days, so maybe sometime in retirement when I have a chance to hang up my head from working on, this stuff so hard, that I can, find time to enjoy that kind of game. Because as a kid, I would have definitely played the game multiple times, tried to get the multiple endings. But I think that it's a good, strong ending, and I'm glad I saw the ending, because I think it's a ending that's important, in its own right. So if you're a dork that has become eccentric and feels distant from the ones from your roots, no worries, it's not unusual. So thank you guys for watching. Kick that like, kick the subscribe button, kick a comment in the comment section. Hopefully this is a good respite from the news currently. Hopefully that news gets better in time. Maybe obviously as things continue to erode in their own way. But keep safe and have a good one, guys. See you next time.